rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here comes the West Indies. And when you're facing the generals, nearly every ball is a funeral. And when we batting, brother, go and put your men on the boundary line. And if you give we a liquor, that is merely a hiccup. Look, you win the little battle, you lose the war. It's the same result every time. Everybody sing. Here come the West Indies. Here come the West Indies. Them rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here come the West Indies. I'll tell you now. Here come the West Indies. Here come the West Indies. Them bad boys gonna bring you to your knees. Here come the West Indies. Special request to the Trini posse. And what about the Guyana posse? And what about the Jamaica posse?
How's that? Yards in your life, 22 yards of the truth. Are you gonna stand there and tremble, my friend? Brother, are you gonna shoot? Are you gonna get lifted? Another batsman heads to the dressing room. Gonna do? Will you have some butter in the palm of your hand when the demon ball comes to you? Listen to me. This ain't no sissy fight baseball game. You do not get to wear an oversized glove. When you see the leather flying to your naked hand, you pray to your God for some love, or you get lifted. Another batsman trots to the dressing There we go. There we go. This game it's not a game for the weak of heart. You're on a sticky wicket, waiting for the fires to start. Yeah, this is a game of gentlemen. So gentlemen, the brutality begins. 2 fingers mean you're in heaven. 1 finger means you the round. A slaughter in Sydney. A border bus out. A licking at Lord. A Kingston killer. A Port of Spain friend. A Durban thriller. A pull away your beating. A Colombo crush. Who gonna be the next fool to pass in the rush? So everybody, stand up and show respect. Cricket is not an insect. Stand up and show respect. Cricket is not an insect. Stand up and show respect. Cricket is not an insect. Stand up and show respect. Cricket is not an insect. Stand up and show respect. Cricket is not an insect.
Lifted, David Michael Rudder, from the album, The Cricket Chronicles, the only cricket album, musical album. We have the distinction here in the Caribbean. We have the greatest cricket book ever written, Beyond the Boundary by C.L.R. James, and the only cricket album, David Michael Rudder, The Cricket Chronicles. The theme song there, Lifted. Cricket is not a game for the faint of heart. It's not any sissified baseball with oversized gloves. It's not an insect. It's not an insect. The philosophy behind. Please share the link. We are on tonight. We have had a week of cricket, and we're going to be talking, as usual, about what the West Indies did on the field of play. But we're also going to be talking, of course, Cricket Beyond the Boundary, Dr. Vincent Adams, former Guyana opening batsman in the heyday of Guyanese and West Indies cricket. Oh, how we long for those days. You remember, I started as a 10-year-old, paying close attention to cricket. I could understand it. And it was the 1969 West Indies tour to Australia that I first understood cricket in its larger sense. One of my friends, Aubrey Paul, who was a little bit older than me, and he, I was by him, and he was telling me about Clive Lloyd and Basil Butcher, who was playing his last series, Seymour Norse, and that was 1969. I was 9 going on to 10 and got my first sense. But I really got into cricket in a real sense and understand what it was in 1971 when the Indians came to the West Indies, early 1961. We had just begun high school, and I remember Mr. Chakalal and Mr. Munilal and Mr. Bagwandin. They were our science teachers, and they had a radio in the lab. Well, you know, in those days, science wasn't a thing that we were into as much. Well, once that cricket started to play, everybody wanted to go into the lab for your science classes, because Chakalal and Munilal and Bagwandin, they had the radio in there. And even when your science class was finished, you ain't going upstairs for your other classes. You stand up and you're putting your ears to the wall to hear what's going on. I remember well that series when the Indians came. Of course, we know what Gavaskar and Wadikar, who was the captain, and Dilip Sardesai, who gave us hell. He made a couple of double centuries in that series. Eknath Sulka, when you get the top order, Sardesai and Sulka always thing, and Venkata Raghavan and Bishan Singh Bedi and ML Jaishima, K Jayanti Lal. You know them boys. You know you were fascinated with the Indian cricketers who came. They had Abid Ali, who famously bowled Sobers with a shooter. Those of you old timers know what a shooter was. I think Sobers has just gotten word that he had gotten a baby and so on. And the West Indies team, of course, was in transition at that time. Rohan Babalal Kanai was still as good as anybody, and he gave a good account of himself during that series. Clive Lloyd didn't do too well in that series, but Charlie Davis, who did very well. But we lost, and it launched the career of Sunil Gavaskar, and the mighty Relator did, as you remember, a memorable calypso of that year, 1961. But that's a long time ago, 54 years ago. Can you imagine it? Someone born.
Blue skies and gentle breeze. The Indians are waiting now to play the West Indies. A signal from the umpire. The match is going to start. The cricketers come on the field. They all look very smart. Irapali Prasanna, Gigi Boy and Wadeka, Krishna Murthy and Vishnu Mankad. Them boys could well play cricket on any kind of wicket. They make the West Indies team look so bad. We was in all kind of trouble. Joey Carew pull a muscle. Clive Lloyd get about 3 run out. We was in trouble without a doubt. It was Gavaskar, the real master, just like a wall. We couldn't out Gavaskar at all, not at all. You know the West Indies couldn't out Gavaskar at all. Venkataraghavan, Bedi Inatuba, Vijay Jaishima, Jayanti Lal. They helped to win the series against the West Indies at Sabina Park and Queen's Park Oval. 158 by Ganai, really sent our hopes up high. Noriega 9 for 95, the Indian team, they still survive. It was Gavaskar, the real master, just like a wall. We couldn't out Gavaskar at all, not at all. You know the West Indies couldn't out Gavaskar at all. Govindra Janjurani, Solka Abidali, Dilip Sadesai and Vishwanath. They make West Indies bowlers look like second-raters when those fellows came out here to bat. West Indies try holder and keep voice. They had no other choice. They who tried with Newton now, but a shot at the sorry they bring him now. It was Gavaskar, the real master, just like a wall. We couldn't out Gavaskar at all, not at all. You know the West Indies couldn't out Gavaskar at all. Little Desmond Lewis, also Charlie Davis, they take a little shame from our we face. But Sobers as a captain, he won plenty coaching before we cricket end up in a disgrace. Bedi here that he became a father, he catch out whole first in the cover. But when Sobers here, he too had a son. He made duck and went back in the pavilion. It was Gavaskar, the real master, just like a wall. We couldn't out Gavaskar at all, not at all. You know the West Indies couldn't out Gavaskar at all. You know the West Indies couldn't out Gavaskar at all. You know the West Indies couldn't out Gavaskar at all.
Only calypso, the only music in the world could do that. Take a sport and put it to music. And the great thing about that calypso, like I said, I grew up on that calypso because my real sense of cricket, international cricket, started there. I can tell you all the names of the players on both sides of my generation because we came of age. We had just started high school in 1970, August, September. And of course, the Indians came in early 71. And then Relator sang that song. But the unique thing about that calypso is that here was a West Indian singer singing about how the West Indies get beat up badly. You know, Betty here, he become a father and Alford get catch out in the covers. So was there he get a father, he make a duck and gone back to the pavilion. Really, really fantastic. And 54 years ago, can you imagine it? Plenty people born dead and in that time and gone back to the maker. It's a long time, but we are still with it. We're still with it. Another day at the office. That's the title of a novel. I think The Morning at the Office by Edgar Metro Holz. Another day. Let's bring in Dr. Vincent Adams. Basil Butcher Jr. is not with us this evening. He has other engagements. Doc, how are you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. You just, I had spent a full day of cricket, obviously.
Thank you. Because we had both the West Indies playing the second one-day match and then the first test between South Africa A and West Indies A starting. But before we get there, if I as a 11-year-old, 11-year-old could remember vividly that 1971 series, you as a cricketer during that time, because you would have made your first class debut in 1969.
Right.
So you were in the thick of things. So you would remember that 1971 series very, very, very well. Reminisce for us.
Well, I remember, so as a matter of fact, I remember, Gavaskar. I think Gavaskar made his debut there, and certain things you remember. I think he got dropped at 48 in that test in Trinidad when he got dropped at 48.
And he went on to make a double century.
That's exactly it. So you wanted just those simple things, moments in the game that could change a game, any which way. I mean, that drop catch, if they had taken that catch, who knows what would have happened, and maybe who knows what would have happened with Gavaskar's career after that. Because I'm telling you, when somebody gets a big score, especially when you start and you get a big score, you feel that you belong, and it does a lot for your career after that. So that that was a moment for me. But I saw, of course, I saw the team at Bordeaux, and to be honest, the bowler that I liked there was Prasanna. You remember the
off spinner, very tight,
very tight. And for whatever reason, I know a lot of people like an off spinner going up, but he was very, very accurate and very tight.
Mm-hmm.
So he was my of course Betty with his variation and stuff like that. But yes, I remember that good. As a matter of fact, I was granted the privilege of being in the with the players in the pavilion and stuff, because I become a national player. But I remember that series, not very well. It's been a long time. but I remember certain moments of it.
Yeah, and if you go back, Doc, India opened the bowling. They had Abid Ali, who was
Yeah,
below military medium pace.
that was just to remove the shine off the ball. If you
Showing
remember,
off the ball.
that was
Salka,
just yeah,
Etnat Salka was more a part-time off spinner than a
yeah.
medium pace. The two of them opened the bowling, get the shine off the ball, and then they went into Prasanna, Venkat, and Berry. And then you had Salkar and Jaishima who could also bowl. But you fast forward for 54 years, and India now has some of the best fast bowlers in the game. I mean,
Absolutely. Well, we
Doctor,
had remember they invested in and I think they even changed the wickets and stuff. They had some of our own bowlers go over there and coach, like Charlie Steers. I know Charlie Steers was over there, and a few West Indian fast bowlers. So they decided to shift gear because remember before that, I mean India was at the bottom of the table and they could not handle fast bowling at all. Remember Harlan Griffith, what they did to them? When was it? Which year did they? I was
1962. You're talking about contractor last week.
contracted that. That's I mean, fast bowling just devastated them, and I guess I guess they made the decision. Just we did the reverse.
You reverse.
Well, we did the same thing.
Hey,
We did the same thing when we went. You remember when Clive decided, hey, you know what? I'm
before
gonna
from,
do.
right.
So we did basically the same thing when we got, when after that tour to Australia, and Clive said, "Here now, we're not gonna take this. We're gonna fight fire with fire." So ours were, I guess, more deliberate and quick in coming, but I guess they did the same thing. And yeah, but Salkar never. I mean, Salkar and Berry. But in today's cricket, Doc, you wouldn't even these guys, the spinners are even bowling the new ball.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I remember in those days, as a matter of fact, they even used to be rubbing the ball on the ground to take off the shine. The Indians used to do it. You rub the ball to take off the shine on the turf and stuff like that. Or you get your hand, you drag your hands in the dirt on the pitch and you rub the ball. That in the Indians would do that. Because they've got the spinners. But in our case, when we have the fast bowlers, you want to keep that shine going as much as possible to get some movement before your spinners come on.
Going back to the late 1960s, early 1970s was a period of transition for our cricket. Kanai, Sobers, Butcher, Nurse, Hall, Griffith, they were all coming. Hunt had left in 67. They were all coming to the end of their careers. Norris and Butcher left in 69. Sobers and Kanai held on for a little while, but they clearly were at the end of their career. So we were going through a transition between 69 and 74 when Clive was appointed. And you look back at that period and look back at I remember that 71, for example, John Shepherd.
Yep, I remember John Shepherd
playing for the West Indies. And as Relator said, it they try Uton now, but I think they're sorry now. And you think about the number of players that West Indies played within that period, You had Alford, you had a switch between Lewis, Findlay, and then Murray came back in 73. We were trying so many players. Is that and you see now, I said we were in transition then. I don't mean to imply that we were in transition now because now it's a long transition. But you see so many players come on the scene and they're trying. In that series alone, I think West Indies must have played almost 20 players in that series alone.
But you're right. You're right, because what has happened? Look, for a very long time you had basically a fixed team of greats.
Yes,
Doc, I remember in the Guyana team we had what, 6 players from the Guyana team playing in the West Indies team. 5 in my time were batsmen. Kamash, that I had to compete against. Kamash, Fredericks, Tanai, Butcher, well, Butcher stopped in 69. Butcher lied. Kalicharan.
Literal.
Well,
Yes.
as a matter of fact, it's interesting that you mentioned Dave Shepard, the guy from, the little quick.
Quickie from John Shepard, yes.
John
Played-
Shepard, sorry.
played for Kent.
I
And
played
Dave-
against him. I played against him he played in that 16. He played in the 69 Shell Shield when I made my debut at Bora. And he used to bowl a lively bumper. He used to get the ball to come off of a very good, bumps at a very good height. And I remember Alvin, because Alvin had played in the 60 he played in the Leeward Islands game at St. Kitts, and he didn't make many, so he got dropped in the Jamaican game. When we went to Jamaica, he got dropped. St. John. Then when we came back home to
Claude St. John.
Claude St. John played,
Yes.
and Claude even make, I think, 40 or so in the second inning. But when we came back to Guyana for the third game, they brought back Kali. So again, Kali's place was on the line. I never forget. And when Kali was on 7, that same Shepard hit him that same bump on, and Kali fed it off. The ball hit his glove and popped up at a guy had sealed it off. I think it might have been Blades, Colin Blades.
Mm-hmm.
And would you believe that simple catch fell through his hands? And Kali went on to make 63. And then at the next game against Trinidad, he made some runs. Or else, who knows again? No, but we always say the cream comes to the top. It might have delayed his progress, but he was the kind of batsman who would have probably come later. But just those one opportunity. Look at Roy Fredericks, for example, and how his career was sidelined completely, and then he came back because Romain Warren was available at the time, to open to open, and then Fredo was available. So Fredo, he just called him up. He went and he look what he did. But all it takes is just a single moment. I look at, if you fast forward, I look at this kid here who's making all these runs, Carty. It's the same kind of thing. All it takes a lot of time, probably almost 100%, is just that one big score to give you that confidence. Because you have the ability. It's just the confidence. I always say that when you get to that level, confidence is 99% of your batting. And a lot of players, batsmen would tell you that, maybe even the bowlers. So, but it's those moments in the game that can make a difference in a team winning and in the career of a player. Just those simple moments.
Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
when you see a person drop a catch,
right,
it may just look like a catch, or a person take a spectacular catch. It may just look like a catch. It took it, but it makes a lot of difference. That's why they say if you hold your catches, you're going to win matches.
You're going to win matches. And 71, we lost 1-0 or 0-1 to India. New Zealand came the next year.
Yep.
They drew with us 0-0. Those are two teams we used to beat.
Yep.
Hands down. And I remember, but in that 72 series, as you alluded, first Lawrence Rowe, Jamaica, 214 and 100 not out.
Yeah.
And then they got to Border, and Kali comes in 100 not out.
Yeah.
And two stars are born. In the middle of the demise, these two stars are born, and they would, in many regards, carry West Indies or were part of the core of carrying West Indies batsmanship for the next decade. Rowe never fulfilled the kind of promise. He was prone to illness, and we are learning now that he had problems with the management and all of that thing. But and then Kali played throughout the 70s, but of course we came to the end of the 70s. You had the Packer story and so on. The others came back, and he left for South Africa, and so forth. But even in the moment of downward slide of the cricket, we were still producing BO2 producing world-class cricketers. You mentioned Charlie Steers. How good was Charlie Steers? Some of the old-time people in my village, Rugam and them guys, believe Steers was better than many people thought.
Yes, I have never played. I never played with him, but you talk to all of the old timers. When you talk with, and the guy was he was not just a devastating fast bowler. They could say the guy could have bat. He could have bat.
Yes.
So I met him. I met him once in New York. But when you ask like English and those type of people, they would tell you that he was. As a matter of fact, a lot of those older folks would always pick Charlie Steers in their all-time Guyana team.
Yeah,
he was that good, and even well, not with the current fast bowlers, well, with the recent crops of fast bowlers we had, but he was always ranked up there in the top fast bowlers in the West Indies for sure. In Guyana, no, he was. I heard he was just a great all rounder. But I can tell you that I mean that 72 New Zealand tour. I vividly remember that, right? Of course, because it was personal to me. And let me tell you why. It was myself, Alvin, and Lawrence Rowe who came up through the and by the way, at that time, the reason why you had that crop of players, by the way, was because of the youth series tournaments that had just started.
Yes.
It started in '68 in Barbados, where myself and Lawrence Rowe and Bernard Julian, David Murray, Inchanali, Rafik Jumadine, Larry Gomes came the year after. No, Larry Gomes came in '70 because I didn't play against Larry. I played against his brother Sheldon. Richard D'Souza. So that's where the crop, the wicketkeeper Lewis.
Yes.
From Jamaica.
Herbert Chang was part of that crop too.
Yeah, he came after. I didn't play against him, but he came. I think they came. Probably. My last thing was in '69.
Oh, they came in '70. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So that was where that crop that you were talking about. That's where that crop was, because of not 1968 when we started that 1968 Benston Hedges.
Benston Hedges, yes.
And that was where like I excelled. Lawrence Rowe. That was where myself and Lawrence Rowe had we were the two batsmen that came out, and Sam Morgan too. Morgan,
open batter from Jamaica.
Newton Dow came out there too. That's where we all, really made a name for ourselves. So the batsman was, myself and Lawrence Rowe, and I think Sam was in there too. But we were the batsmen that came, because Kali. Like I remember, I told you that story where Kali didn't get to play in '68 because he had played one game for Guyana in '67. So, but anyway, so we were the ones who were, so I went on. The next year in '69, I made my debut for Guyana. Lawrence made his debut for Jamaica, and Kali, of course, played in that same series. And myself, Roy, and Kali, we didn't make a whole lot of runs, but we made it just about the same total for the whole '69, the tournament. And then of course it was the next year when we played. After that tournament in '69, in the Case Cup in '69, and I didn't make a whole lot in Intercounty in '69, but I made some runs in Case Cup. Then in trials, we had one trial game, and I made the most runs. We batted in the West. We played one trial night because of the rain. I top scored with 34 out of 70 something. That was when we had all the stars back home. And then in the second innings, I made 80 something. So I top scored in both, but I could not get into the team because Fredericks and Kamash had already established themselves in the West Indies team as openers. And in those days, when you open batting, you can't bat anyway down. Right. So why I brought that up, because immediately after that trial, I got into the automobile accident. So that was it for me. So I was on the sideline, and I came back and I didn't play until 2 years afterwards, really. So when New Zealand came down, and I saw what Roy had done, because what he used to do is play the
Not Clement Rowe, you're talking about Lawrence Rowe.
Lawrence Rowe. Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, I better make that's a big distinction there. So Yago, well, let me call you Yago. So Yago,
right.
remember they used to play the colony games force. You remember?
Yes.
And the teams all used to go to Jamaica force. They play against the Jamaican 11. Of course, he bust what was it, 100, big 100. Or he didn't double in that game. He made 100.
170 something, 180 something.
It was a big 100.
It was a big 100, yeah.
And then he got into the test team, and we know what happened there, a double and a single. And then when they came to Guyana, Kali did the same exact thing. Kali went and make 100 in the, what we call the Kali game, and then made 100 in the test team. So here I was sitting on the sideline, and not that I was sad for them, I was sad for myself. And
because the two men who you were.
That's right, because because my ambition, even though at the time I'd already started university at the University of Guyana after I got into accident. That was, I went there. But still, I tell myself, I could have been here. When I see Kali made 100 at board, I said, oh, shucks, I could have been doing that. And
you preempted my question, because I was going to ask you how close you came to playing for the West Indies, you think?
Well, of course I had to make runs.
Yeah.
The good thing was, I had the chief selector who believed in me, Sir Everton. Matter of fact, and I guess I can talk now, but I recall that after the 68 youth tournament, he really liked me, and he called, because Clyde and Basil Butcher told me that he called Clyde.
Yes.
He called Clyde. Clyde was the chief selector in Guyana, and he told Clyde, I don't care how much runs you make in your local competition, pick him in the Guyana team, because I want to take him to England, because you remember the team was going to England when did they and that's right after 69.
Yes, they went for
69. They went in 69. Yes, I remember they played the team after our last Shell Shield game in 69.
Yes, they played a 3-match series
right.
in 69. Yes.
So in 68 in the youth series, after we had finished youth series, because I came out, because they had a fast bowler named Hallam Mosley from Barbados who terrorized everybody, and I took care of him, which really impressed Everton and West Hall, as a matter of fact. So Everton called Clyde and said, Clyde, pick him, because he's got the best technique of all of our batsmen that we need to go to England. Because remember, they were struggling for an opening batsman.
Yes.
Remember? So they were changing batsmen, trying to get. So that is why I thought I even had a better chance than even Yago and Kali, because that in the middle was packed, but there was a position at the opening slot. So of course I still made runs to get into the Ghana team. Even though Everton tell Clyde it doesn't matter how much runs I make sure he picks me, because he wanted to take me to England because of my technique for the English conditions in 69. Of course, I didn't make enough runs to get into the team, so there was no way that I would have been picked in 69. So that's the close. Oh, the other thing is when I came when I came back and started making runs, and even Wes Hall, and even I saw Everton after that, he came down to Guyana. He was wondering. He said, "Well, come I stop playing?" And Wes Hall said the same thing. And at the time, Wes was coaching for Trinidad. Remember, he went to Trinidad. He was even playing
for Trinidad.
So Wes and Everton was advising me. They say, well, here, if you can't get it, that Guyana team is jam-packed, starting from the top with Fredo and Stephen. And then you have Kali now that had established himself. You have Clive. Mm-hmm. And in them days, them boys used to come back home from the cricket.
Yes.
And Basil, even though Basil had stopped playing Test, Basil was still playing for Guyana.
Right.
You had Joe Salomon. Joe was our captain when I played. So it was So Wes now, because Wes was begging me to go to Trinidad, to leave UG, go to UWI and play. And he said, you will get in the West Indies team through Trinidad, through playing for Trinidad. But I think I'd already decided on what my career was going to be as an engineer, and it was, there's no way I'm going to leave a country to go to a foreign country with no family and that type of stuff as a young kid who was spoiled by your family, your family doing everything for you. So I wasn't going to leave, but that was what they were both Everton and Wes, especially Wes, was trying to talk me into going to UWI and play and get in through Trinidad. But so no, that's the closest I came. But I did not deserve getting picked, obviously, because I did not perform well enough when I had my chance in that 69. But that's the closest I came, that when I look back and look at the memories of. But I really, that's why I always talk about Alvin and Yago. They had some special attributes. Like Yago, for example. I remember playing with you in 68 because I saw him before, we used to play one game at a time. So we spent over 3 weeks in Barbados, because it was only one game playing at the time. So we went to see them playing against Trinidad. And he made 21 on a wet wicket. And I told them guys, I say, hey, this is the batsman we're gonna have to deal with. But he made a quiet 21, but and I was always a kind of a student of the game. And I looked at him, I said, wow, just by making 21, and so said, so done, he came and he bust 100 in us. He bust 100 in us and Sam Morgan.
Yes.
Sam Morgan could have bat. You hear me? That boy is the best thing I see playing spin bowling. And you talk about using your feet. Then nobody could use their feet like Sam Morgan. I see put 100 on Lance Gibbs at Bordeaux. And every delivery, even though Lance Gibbs was a big name, every delivery Sam was halfway down the wicket. And I remember the 100 he put in us in Barbados. You know what? You think you know the game, and William Jeffrey was our off spinner, and so I go to William. I said, "Nah, just by everything coming down the wicket, so we're gonna put." And Jeffrey was a really good off spinner, so we put two short mid wicket, for catching, because he's gonna have to come and hit it uppish around that area, boy. And we put two short mid wicket right there. And Sam come in and I said, Jeff, hold it back. And Jeff kept holding by, and that did never bother Sam. By Sam would come in, and when he get to the pitch or not, he would hit it flat. Because in those days you never used to hit in the air or hit over the top. But he was you talk about, and who played with who was in that mixed up? Basil Williams, gunboat.
Shotgun.
He was. But there was another batsman. They were not the best batsmen in the team, believe it or not. There was a kid by the name of Buchanan.
Yes, I went to Jamaica, and I think I met him. I met a relative of his, and they were telling me in Jamaica how good he was.
Oh yeah, he was the batsman. Really, it wasn't really when they came at 68. It was really Buchanan, who was, they talked about batsman, and he was a solid, but he I think he's a lawyer. He became a lawyer, so I think he migrated to academic, but he was a good player. But getting back to where we started, that's where that big crop of players came from. That's where it was.
Yeah,
starting in 68, 69, 70 youth series. That's where that crop of players came from.
Let me ask you this. Trinidad, we talked about India with Prasanna, Betty.
Yeah.
And Chandrasekhar didn't come on the 71 tour.
Right.
The first time I saw Chandrasekhar, he came as part of Hyderabad Blues. They would send him down, and I remember being fascinated how quick a spinner he was.
Yes.
I had not seen Underwood I would hear about Underwood on a weight in England. But I didn't know anything at that time about quick leg spinner. And I saw Chandrasekhar. So India, 4-prong spin attack. But in Trinidad, when you go to Trinidad, I mean, there was Jumadine, and Imtiaz Ali came later, but you had Noriega, 9-4-9-5. What it was like playing those Trinidadian spinners on that? It was a mat wicket they played on in Trinidad.
They used to play Matthew, but of course, the thing is, when we played, the only time I played in Trinidad was in the 69. The 69, after I played Shell Shield, and we went back for the Benson Hedges tournament. All of our games were played at Queen's Park. So I didn't get, so it's only Queen's Park. I played. Queen's Park did not have a mat wicket.
Okay.
But I think they've done away with those Martin wickets, because that's what all of the wickets outside of Queen's Park used to be. So I don't know if they still have these Martin wickets, because I used to ask them, like, how the heck could you bat in these Martin wickets? But when they said apparently they prepare it underneath and all kinds of stuff. But so I never played on Martin, but I can tell you about them spinners. And I was a front foot player, and when I went to Trinidad in the first couple of games, I struggled, even though I played Shell Shield, because the ball doesn't come onto you. But when you're playing front foot, like in Barbados, it's good. And them days, Barbados, they quick. I remember when we were leaving to go to Barbados in '68, Clyde pulled me aside. He said, young sir, I know you're a front foot player. I'm not going to change your style, but just it's a different wicket to Guyana wicket. It's bounce and pace. And I decided I was not going to change. But it came out well for me, because you see, in playing on your front foot, you don't lunge and commit yourself. So even if somebody bowl a bumper, and of course, the attitude of a bumper is, to me, it was always a long up. I don't care. So this guy, Hallam Mosley, he was terrorizing everybody. And then I came, took care of him basically. And I didn't change my step. But when I went to Trinidad, the Trinidad wicket was stopping and turning. So when you go on your front foot, so you just have to be careful. But what happened in that tour, and that is why I would like to see them take youngsters on this. I learned playing spin. I improved tremendously when I went back home to Guyana, because I remember all the spin, but because I learned to play off the back foot more, because I had to adjust to the Trinidad wicket. So I learned to play off the back foot more, even though I was still a front foot. I learned to play off the back foot more. Like when I did with the Cornelius and the rest of those folks, they became much more easier for me, because I used to play shots only off the front foot. But now I had another, I had another repertoire in that now I could step forward and then come back and play off. That is why even you look at the style of the batsmen from Trinidad, most of them are cutters.
Mm-hmm.
You remember Richard D'Souza? Richard D'Souza
used to give us hell.
And it's because of that slow wicket and turn. They wait late, and they, especially leaving, they cut or they pull and those type of things. And one of the things that Butcher told me was, don't sweep in Trinidad, because especially when you're not used to sweeping on that type of wicket, because when you sweep, if the ball bounces, it's going to hit your top edge. Because remember, the ball stopping and bouncing.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? My first inning I played there, I got out sweeping on tour or something. But the Trinidad, the Trinidad tour improved at my batting tremendously in terms of adding playing spin off the back foot instead of just driving and chipping into the bowlers. And that is why I'm always an advocate, even if these young players, if they can't make a team and they've got potential, keep them in that touring party, because you learn so much when you're in that touring party, even if it's in the nets. Because remember, when you're in the nets, you're having the best bowler to as a batsman, and the bowlers have the best batsmen they've got the bowl to. So I've never seen anybody who went in a tournament come back and hadn't improved. You know, in their in their skills.
Richard D'Souza, of course. I remember Guyana playing against Trinidad. You get the top order, and then D'Souza and Prince Bartholomew.
Yeah.
Prince Bartholomew's the medium fast bowler. He came in at number 7, and then he and because I think D'Souza batted at 4 or 5, and they would all Guyana up.
Richard got, I think Richard averaged over, I think 44, 45 in Chelsea.
Yeah, but you left early. He and Charlie Davis.
Yeah, but you see the thing with Richard, but those are the kind, because in our time again, Richard never got in a West Indies team because of how it was packed.
Yes.
How it was packed. You know who was another one never got in a West Indies team? They used to make runs like rain. This Brentford Pinnock. Pinnock, but I mean, Pinnock, you don't want to look at him as a batsman to learn to bat, because the guy does. If you come from Mars or something, you look at him, you never call the game cricket. The guy was so unorthodox, but he just decide, okay, it doesn't matter what you bowl, he's gonna chip the next delivery, and he gone and he chip, and then he come back and he blot and he do. But that man used to make a bunch of runs. You remember Peter Lashley and all them boys?
Yes.
And they were not steady fixtures. Those people used to make runs like rain, but they were not steady fixtures because, of course, what the team was. They had no room for a whole lot of people. So Charlie Davis was part of that team. Charlie Davis used to make some big runs. Charlie Davis, a lot of people don't know Charlie Davis probably, what was it, the 4th highest batting average all time.
54.
54. Absolutely. It's more than Viv Richards. Viv got 50.
Yeah. He dominated in 72.
With New Zealand, he made a lot of runs when we were in trouble against New Zealand.
He made runs in 73 when Australia came. And that was it. He just,
he was another guy who loved me too. He was even trying to get me to go play league after he saw me in Trinidad, to go play league cricket in England. And then, of course, again, we got into the accident. So when he came to Guyana, I never forget this conversation. He came to Guyana. So he said, what was really happened to you? You stopped playing the game or something because, I'm not playing in the Guyana team. I said, no, Chief. I said, you see what happened? You see the Guyana team, and I, you got to make runs and all that. Anyway, he said, what? He said, run. You should not worry about runs. And so he was telling, what was his philosophy? He said, let me tell you something. As long as you can bat good enough, your attitude is to stay there. He said, whenever I leave the dressing room to go out and bat, you know what I tell those guys? I'll see you at lunch. When we come in for that session, I just tell you, I'll see you at tea. When I leave after tea, I just tell them, I'll see you again at close of play. He said, believe it or not, I do not look at the scoreboard. He said, those runs are going to come. As long as you got your basic shots, play every single delivery on its merit, and the runs are going to come without you even knowing it. He said, but when you start looking at the scoreboard, he said, don't ever look at the scoreboard. And that was his philosophy, and that's exactly how he batted. Clyde Walker too. Clyde Walker told me, when I used to make a whole bunch of 70s and 80s and get out in case. Clyde called me aside one. He said, you got to be the best 70 batsman that I've ever seen. He said, it doesn't make any sense. He said, if you make a 70, you got to know how to make 140. He said, if you make 10, you got to know to make 20. And if you make 20, you got to know to make 40. And if you make 40, you got to know to make 80. Because he said, especially those early runs are the hardest. So you're not right getting out. Clyde Walker average? 58 or something.
Somewhere between 56 and 58, yes.
But that is the mental part that, when you listen to those guys in terms of the mental part of their batting.
Understanding with ruthless off the back foot.
Oh, geez, you talk about, that's why they talk about Viv Richards. Of course, I hadn't seen besides looking on film and stuff like that, Viv Richards, but they talk about Viv Richards. You should see Big Clyde on the go. That man was devastating, And in them days, remember in them days, you know, when you look at the bats, it's not like the bats of today, where it's got a lot of meat and stuff like that. But no, Big Clyde boy, you know, when you look back and see what those guys average and how they used to beat bowling, really,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. He and Weeks there, average in the 50s.
that's
Warrell averaged 49.
49. That's right.
Man,
But you know,
yeah.
you know the other thing, and that's why I just tell a lot of people, when you look at the West Indies batsmen, you ask anybody to name the West Indies batsmen, the top batsman of the West Indies team. You know the one batsman that they would never, nobody think about is Clive Lloyd.
Mhm.
Nobody don't call Clive as a batsman. They also he's a great captain. Clive has a better average than Butcher, Kali Charan, Lawrence Rowe, Roy Fredericks, every one of them. They're Conrad Hunt, Greenidge, all of them are bunched up around 44, 42.
Yeah,
You know was his average 47 plus.
47, yeah.
He's there right there with Rohan Kanai.
Rohan, yes, he and Rohan are averaging 47.
But
yes.
everybody is saying your first name here is Rohan Kanai. I'm a Rohan Kanai man too. But nobody ever mentions Clive as a batsman. You know, everything overshadows everything else he does as a captain, overshadows his batting. And Clive makes he goes some, you know, India, for example. I mean, a lot of times those are difficult places to make runs. In India, Clive would go up there and he's made his debut in India, as a matter of fact. And he makes a lot of runs in, you know, but Clive is a heck of a batsman too that never gets the credit for his batting.
Yeah, making his debut in 66, 67, 82 and 78.
Yep.
82 and 78. I remember somebody bringing a cricket magazine in the village as a small boy there, 10, 11 years old, and you're reading of this 67 and Lloyd, 82, 78. It's stuck in my memory to this day. In the days of cricket magazines. I mean, you don't have them things now. But
Nah, you don't. Yeah. But you know, I know if I had mentioned this story that Clive told me to make sure that I asked him, I called him, I asked him if he would allow me to talk about it at Paidano's funeral. Because Clive had told me this story before, so I called him because I was part of the funeral for Clive, you know, the service in New York.
Mhm.
So I called him. He said, sure. So he told me the story. He said, well, Pai was on the tour with him in, which year was that, Doc? Well, Paidano went to India with Clive as captain.
That would have been 83.
Okay.
Yes,
So-
that would have been 83. Yes.
So Clive was making runs, right? So this guy, this cricket fan, you know, one of them guys with lots of money and stuff who would be around those teams. The guy came to the hotel with a big flask of this special tea, you know, and said, you know, this special tea brought for Clive. So Clive said, thank you and everything. And they had a good chat. So soon the man had not even gone through the door yet. Paidano rushed and pick up the flask and empty it down the sink.
Why?
So Clive said, why, Pai, what's the matter with you? Pai said, let's bring it at the end of the tour. Now when you making all these runs. Pai said, why you give it to me? Or you can give it to them other batsmen who are making runs. You making all the runs, he bring tea for you. Tell you he bring the tea after the tour. Pai said, you ain't drinking no damn tea, eh? You making all the runs. You ain't drinking no tea from nobody.
Dr. Vincent Adams here tonight. Here, of course, this section of our program where we reminisce of cricket through the years. DJ, the series when Gavaskar ran, and they chuck in the series, as we would say, that was 76. By that time, we had fast bowlers, so Gavaskar wasn't the master on that tour. The little master chuck in and throw yard in the air and so on. Doc, another week. First one day international after a high in the last two matches in Ireland, comprehensively beaten, 400 runs conceded, and we were folded for 100 and something. How do you move from 300 and something in both of the matches, the last two matches in Ireland, albeit it's Ireland, and then you come to what you saw in the first match in England? Talk to us.
Well, we said it right here last week, Doc. What we said was this here is a different competition. So in the midst of our celebrations and with their performance in the final game or in the last two games in Ireland, we've got to understand that this here is a different competition. So that's exactly what happened. But the thing is with the West Indies team, and I don't know how you get rid of it. It's the inconsistency in the players. So that game we lost by at least. I said, well, okay, there's hope that we may repeat what we did in Ireland. We catch ourselves and adjust and come back in the next game. Well, that's exactly what happened today with the batting. But then we repeated our own transgressions again. Doc, there is no way that any team, any international team, should be at 172 for one after 30 over, because we use I and some others, some commentators, and I got it from the commentators. You normally use as a rule of thumb, if you've got wickets in hand in a 50 over game, you always look at what the score is at 30 overs, and you're projecting doubling that if you battle the 50. So at 172 for one, I had already projected that we should at least be making about 145 if you double the score. And lo and behold, from 172 for one, look where we ended up with, barely above 300.
Couldn't battle the 50 over.
And couldn't battle the 50 overs. After you get that kind of start, you should put your foot on the next right there, and you see the things, even making that high score. Any team that chases that kind of high score, you gotta panic somewhere. Or 300 is a norm, which is basically 300 is par score, especially for a team like that. But on top of that, we carried away some early wickets. Our bowling was a disaster except for Alzarri. But Seals bowled well in the first game, right? But he did not bowl as well as he did in the first game. And then the other bowlers, and of course, I'm not taking anything away from Joe Root's batting, because that guy is, it
was a master class today.
He's in a special class by himself. But Joe Root and the guy who had the partnership with him. But Joe Root, you're right, that was a masterclass of an inning. But we were also not consistent. And the other thing was the captain. Why, why he took too long to bring back Alzarri.
Yeah.
These guys they were too confident. When Alzarri came on with his first spell, he was making everybody uncomfortable, including Joe Root and I, because he was bowling. He was bowling fast, short of a good length, and the ball was rising all the time, coming at an awkward height. Remember, I always tell you, that's why, Joel Garner, because no batsman like it coming around, at height, because you don't have a whole lot of control. And it's not coming straight, it's coming, it's coming right into you. So he was making everybody uncomfortable, first of all. And that's the one thing that, let's say when I was captain in Guyana, DCC and Mackenzie, if I've got a bowler with rhythm, I am taking you off until you probably get tired, but you pull him off.
Yeah.
When the runs start flowing on everybody with ease, I would have brought him back on earlier. You can't wait until the last. It was too late when he brought him on back, and he came back and showed why he should have been brought back early. But guy came back and he got the wickets to bring them back, to give them a chance back in the game. But it was too late. So it was a mixture of things, but we've got to change the way. Well, on top, we're going back to the batting too. And this guy here, he's our bright star, that gave Carty. But Carty was also responsible for that low score. Carty got to 100 and you got to,
then just give it away.
you give it away. When you do that, you got a new batsman are now coming in. They've got to set, and you're already settled. There was no need for that. You're scoring at a fast rate. If he had stayed there and not throw his wicket away, we would have gotten to that target. But he threw run on the wicket, run on the wicket. Root didn't do that, did he? I mean, I hope that they look at for example, look at Root and see how Root played. His knock was just tremendous. He took his time. He looked for the loose balls. He know which bowler to go and attack, and which bowler to take your time and take the singles. Look, when Alzari came back on, all they were doing, decided to take singles off of him. He wasn't going and attacking Alzari in any way, but they were going after the other bowlers.
Yes, they really manhandled Ford. Because he's not as quick as the others, and if there's not much swing going on, he's exposed. I when they were bowled down below 50 overs, I think they had 2.2 overs left.
That's shameful.
I said that would be the difference in this match, because had they gotten up to 340, as you said. I mean, when you wants them to something at 30 overs, you double.
Basically all the wickets in hand.
All the wickets in hand. I mean, 350 would be should be extremely easy there. But again, you saw no plan. My friend from Cumberland, clearly he has to learn how to bat in proper cricket again.
Again, absolutely, no question.
For the couple of balls that he faced there, I mean, you can see that this is somebody who hasn't played normal. Without
you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely. That was a regular
leg spinner. The last spinner to him.
Regular delivery he got. That was a regular delivery he got.
Just get around it.
Yep, that was a regular delivery.
It's a warm-up. That's a warm-up leg spinner. But you can see the hesitancy.
Yep.
You can see the hesitancy because that is what did him in. You can see the hesitancy. And it's playing that diet of, I'm not saying people should not play T20, obviously, it's an in thing. But if you're playing that alone, you can't be a proper batsman just playing 2020 alone, and
especially Doc, especially when they got you playing as a cleanup hitter in
finisher.
A finisher, in a finisher, you're batting. You're in that technique. You got a little bit of a sense of where the ball there, but when you're a finisher, you're looking for technique, and I mean you come in and getting on with it, and that's what he's gotten used to.
If he was there in the last 10 overs with Bettel and Jacks, I mean, they conceded 90-something runs between the two of them. But you can imagine the Hetmyer that we know playing in the last 10 overs with Rashid and Bettel. We would have gotten close to 400 runs.
Easily.
But, I mean, the onus, I think, is on these players to really catch themselves, as we would say in Guyana.
Yes.
It has to be them. I don't think the coaches can do anything. The board, is always there. But I mean, these players have to commit themselves to playing proper cricket. There's no reason why, when Hetmyer has some weeks off, he should not be done in and going and play for his club there in Bobis. Nothing is wrong. Them boys used to come back and come back from England and play Jones Cup and so on and all.
Them boys, I remember, you see, them boys when they used to play county cricket, when they land in the country, they coming up the next day. They come and case up. And matter of fact, they tell me for pick them. And if they got a substitute fielder for field for them until they come from the put them. But in the county, when I played, all of them used to come. All of them would be the entire Bees team, the entire Demerara team, whoever playing, playing in county cricket, they used to try and come home to play. They used to look for opportunities to play them kind of games. But I guess, but but the thing is though, Doc, and I've said this, I know I've said this over and over in this show, and other places. We've got coaches out to the wazoo. We got more coaches on a squad than players.
Yeah, you see long bowling coach, this coach, fitness, this. Yeah.
Why? Well, here's what we need more than anything. As we keep talking about it, we need at least one psychologist. It's a lot of it is mental, Doc. Why can't we put a psychologist on this team, one or two psychologists on this team? Because the batsmen, like when they throw away the hand, that's mental toughness. We need on this team, because inconsistency is a matter of your temperament, and it's mental. So I've always been advocating. First of all, I'm not a big advocate for all these coaches for everything, but let's say it is what it is. In modern day cricket, it is what it is. But I think that a psychologist or two on a team would be just as valuable, especially now where people are just, you can see they're not mentally tough to play long innings, and you need somebody to find a way to convince them and indoctrinate them that this is, you got to play long innings. You got to tough it out when the times that you are hard. You got to have patience. The bowlers, you got to focus on your line and length. Those are the kinds of things for somebody to strengthen their mental capacity.
The A team was routed for 240. Imlach made 60 odd, but other than that, I think Louis made 50 something. But other than that, basically is our test team batting there. It was Athenaeus, Hodge. Butcher's not here today, right? Well, but he's, last week we were, as you remember, we were quarreling. Well, not quarreling. We were arguing a little bit about, because he's still insists on the Hodges and the Athenaeus being show picks. Yep. But they all were in that 11 today.
Yep. No, and I've said it. You remember we all said it, that they are in a mix to fight for the places. Then the only person now who I would pencil in as a will play is Carty.
Yes,
Carty will play. But here again is the problem with this team again. We had an opening partnership of 79.
Yes.
And we were 10 or 12 for 6.
Mm-hmm.
All of them got wiped out. Mm-hmm. To bring us 110 is a lucky thing. We had they had a partnership of 77 or something.
7 years between Imlach and the spinner from Trinidad Pier.
But it's the same disease that I talked about with the team. The big team today at 172 for 1. And we ended up where we ended up. It's the same thing with this team today. The opening pay put on 79. And then we ended up, well, not where we ended up, but we were 110 for 6. We were lucky that we got to 262.
I mean, I remember Guyana, I think it might have been 71. I can't remember, 71 those years. 641 for 5. I remember. Guyana, 641. Then Butcher was captain in the team. And you small by you said, Jesus, this is box sick. And I think we made those runs against Barbados, if I'm not.
Yeah.
If I'm not saying, and then Sobers came in. Barbados batted, made 5-something. Sobers make a double. I mean, those guys, you bat. These guys are just happy, hanging around for, make a 40 and so on. And
but here again is the mental part. Look, the one thing that was told, you remember I tell this Clive Walker thing, what he said? He said, remember, when you get an opportunity for make runs, and when you're set, when you get 50 or 100, you don't know when you're going to get back there.
That's right.
And this is the easy street now. You're not scared. You're not, you got the confidence now because you got 100 already. Go and get a double. Go and get a double. Don't, because you never know when you're going to get it. It's hard getting here. So it's easy street from here. So go and get a double that you will always be remembered for. And because when you come back the next time, it's starting from duck. You got to play yourself in and all that kind of stuff. So when you get it, don't throw it away. You never know when that opportunity is going to come again.
Dr. Vincent Adams, tonight, Basil Butcher is taking the night off. He has another appointment. He's a busy man. So I am apologizing for him. Doc, anything before you go you want to leave us with? By the time we come back next week, we'll get the third, the T20s would start.
Right.
And then by the time you say Jack Robinson, the Australians are here.
That's right.
Caribbean. So we should have lots to talk about. Anything before we go?
No, not anything. Just hoping that these guys would because of course the Australians are coming, and it's not gonna be it's gonna be a test, even though it's in the West Indies. But these young players, they've got to come to grips with with the things that we've discussed here. It's just to have that discipline, and I can tell you that what has happened here to like Athanaze and Hodge and them, what is happening? You remember the one thing I talk about all the time is that confidence.
Mm-hmm.
When you lose your confidence, and you can tell because I look at Athanaze in the game before, and he's playing at deliveries what he shouldn't be playing at, but that's the nervousness and the confidence when you get in there. You're not thinking. All you're thinking, oh shucks, I don't want to fail again. You know what I mean? I don't want to fail again. And the one thing I want to say. I think we're not doing this boy good. Just this young Joel kid.
Yes, why they sent him to open today? Why? You're sacrificing the kid.
I am one of those who felt, and when I hear, and the one thing, and why I bring this up, because I hear Brafitt, the commentator Brafitt, not Carlos start talking about his word. He's a prodigy. What happens again is this mental thing. When you tell an 18-year-old, we start giving them the impression that they're the best thing since sliced bread. You're now raising the expectations in this child's mind that everybody thinks that I'm God. So when he goes out there, his level of performance in his mind, and when he fails, it takes him way down with his confidence. And that's what's happening. You cannot be pushing this child because he's still a child.
Yeah.
He only has 100 really, but he's a great talent. But don't destroy the talent by pushing him toward. I am one of those who thought that I think they should have kept him to play in this A team, the 4-day again. Build your temperament with those 4-day games, because it's a higher level than our local 4-day games. Put them against those, because the South African team is not an easy team, the same.
Them youngsters in South Africa team are tough.
Yes, put him there with the eyes of him playing against Australia. But when you carry him there, and then you make it worse by putting him to open.
Yeah, no.
Where did that come from? Where is that thinking come from? So I'm worried about this kid. Because and especially as a young kid, he wouldn't understand how to handle that mental strain on him now, because now he's gonna feel disappointed in himself that he's a failure, and all of these people who love him and think that he's the best thing since sliced bread, he's not, and that's a heavy weight on his shoulder. And I hope that he can come out of it, but what they did to put him to open, it's just unbelievable. That was just unbelievable.
Yeah. I don't know. The captain made most of his runs in one-day cricket opening.
Yep,
And suddenly he doesn't want to open.
Yep.
You put a youngster there and sacrifice him. I really.
What I remember? What I remember is, you remember we talked about this story with Vincent Mears.
Yes.
You remember Mears? Was it 60? Was it 67? Or anyway, when Mears and Clive. Mears was ahead of Clive, by the way. Mears used to make, you talk about somebody making runs in Case Cup, and you talk about a good batsman. That's obviously, in my mind, you're the best batsman in the West Indies that didn't play Test for the West Indies. But anyway, because of that lineup that was blocking, you couldn't get in. A bunch of people were ahead of him when he was making runs. But anyway, so when they picked both he and Clive, was it 66 or 67? It might be 66. But anyway, the first game was in Trinidad, and Clive did not play in the game. Vincent played. Well, Vincent always batted 4 or 5. Throughout his entire life, he batted 4 or 5. He made 47 in that game against Trinidad. So the next game in Barbados, Clive, they said they wanted Clive to play. So guess what they did? They sent Mears to open against West Hall and Charlie Griffith. Never opened batting. Imagine you never open batting in your life. Little by cricket right through your life. And then the first time you're going to open is against Charlie Griffith and West Hall on a Barbados wicket. And that was basically the end of Mears. He never recovered from that. From what happened in Barbados. Again, it shattered his confidence and everything. And then, of course, the criticism in the media, and but that's the kind of thing that you see when you do. And this kid is much younger than Vincent when that happened to him. This kid is only 18 years old. So that's the kind of thing that I don't like. You're going to send him to open batting in a British condition. He never played. You know what I mean? Under this kind of pressure, because everybody, you lose the first game. So he's coming in now. You don't do that you don't do that kind of thing. You don't do that.
We shall see. I'll see you next week, my brother.
All right, good. Take care, man.
Before that, I'll see you on Friday.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Paula Hawk Kippins. Kippins is one of the names I grew up with. Cecil Kippins.
Is a Cecil Kippins relative there?
Well, I don't know. She's Paulette Hawk Kippins, so she might be married into the Kippins.
Okay.
I'll see you next week, my brother.
Yeah, take care.
And thank you to you, the audience. Another inspiring discussion on part of our heritage, because cricket has become long now part of our heritage. And we keep on keeping on. Thank you all for staying with us. And for those of you who are the politics people, I will see you tomorrow. And the cricket people, I'll see you all next week.
Rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here comes the West Indies. And when you're facing the generals, nearly every ball is a funeral. And when we batting, brother, go and put your men on the boundary line. And if you give we a liquor, that is merely a hiccup. Look, you win the little battle, you lose the war. It's the same result every time. Everybody sing. Here comes the West Indies. Here come the West Indies. Them rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here come the West Indies. I tell you now, here come the West Indies. Here come the West Indies. Them bad boys gonna bring you to your knees. Here come the West Indies. Special request to the Trini posse. And what about the guy